Hello everyone and welcome back for the last session of today, which is all about freight forwarders facilitating ambitions. Yes, welcome back everybody, and we're already in the 4th session of the Project Cargo Summit, and I hope you met a lot of new people, you learned a lot of new things, and you're still on the edge of the seat, because we are about to kick off on a very interesting session. Now, on the table with me are Maarten de Ridder from DB Cargo, and Jeroen from Ahlers. Welcome.
Thank you.
And of course we have Adnan from Project Cargo Journal.
Hello again.
Hello again, and you're here to facilitate the audience, so please do not hesitate to speak to us, to speak to the speakers. If you have questions or comments, you can write them in the chat, which you can see on your right hand, and Adnan will help us with that. But now first, Maarten, you came all the way here by train, isn't it?
Well, all the way is in a bit of exaggeration. I came from Antwerp by train, which was easy.
Yeah.
But normally I live in Germany, but I was in Antwerp yesterday and today, so it was a short trip.
A short trip, but does it have anything to do with the fact that you are a train guy, you're working from DB Cargo?
It's just the more convenient way. I don't have a car with me when I travel, so I take a train or a plane.
Yeah, okay, obvious. And Jeroen, you're working from Ahlers and you have a whole lot of activities under your umbrella. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the scope of those activities.
Sure. So I work for Ahlers, which is a 110-year-old company, still family owned, headquartered in Antwerp. And let's say we became from a ship owning, ship operating company more into logistics. And in the 1990s, we expanded more to the east with Russia, CIS, former Soviet Union, and further on to China, Indonesia, India. Today we are really focused on the CIS region, and we still have the offices in Asia where the origin of the cargo is. So we bring cargo from Asia and Europe into CIS. And we do this with four business units, of which one I represent, projects and machinery.
All right. And was it from the beginning that you had this multimodal approach, or did you start with one modality?
When you are in projects, you have to explore every possibility, and very often this is multimodal.
Yeah, and can you explain why that is especially so for Project Cargo?
Well, we make tailor-made solutions for every project. So none of the projects is the same. It's all different origins, all different receivers in the end. So when you talk about projects to Russia, for example, and you ship out of Asia, it arrives in the port, then you go on a truck or on rail. So it's automatically, or on inland waterways, so it's automatically multimodal when you want to move projects. Yes.
But are there certain project types that are more suitable for rail and others more suitable for shipping?
Yes, yeah, it's always a multimodal solution, let's call it like that. Now I have some anecdotes. For example, when you see the latest disruptions in the supply chain, we have to think out of the box. So instead of going all the way around the globe with container freights up to St. Petersburg port, for example, we move now cargo to Vladivostok, which is in the east of Russia, and then we go all the way by rail to, for example, Moscow or inland Russian destinations. So we always think out of the box, react to the current situation in the market, and their multimodal is necessary.
Yeah. Do you agree, Maarten?
Yes, I do agree. I can understand this business from Ahlers. We from rail stick a bit more to the European mainland because we have, and of course we can go to Asia, but we do not have so much direct connections to the States or something.
No. But do you agree that the connection must always be multimodal, or would you say no, we can do only rail?
Well, certain projects are suitable by just rail or just by boat. If you go from port to port, it's easy, or from station to station. But I think there is a general benefit of having a multimodal solution because then you can reach the onward destination, which might not have a rail or a water connection, so you can join forces together.
Yeah. Now when it comes to Project Cargo, which is a very particular type of cargo if you compare it to containers, what is the main advantage of rail?
The main advantage of rail is that compared to truck, you can on a per unit basis already carry a larger piece of equipment. Up to 100 ton is easy. Standard is a trailer 2.50 meters wide. We can go already to 3 meters 20. If you want, you can even go wider, but then you have to, of course, take some precautions, maybe take some electricity posts away on the side of the track, which can be done, but it is complicated. But that's the big advantage compared to a truck.
Is that done, that the electricity posts are...
Sometimes it has
Yes?
to be done, yes.
And how many of those are then taken out?
Ah,
All of the
It
entire...
depends where you go to go.
Yeah, it really surprises me that this is happening.
They're easily down. If you look at them, they're screwed down, so you can easily take them apart. But it's, of course, a big job to do it.
Yeah.
So if you have a real big thing you need to do, then it has to be done.
And what do you think is the advantage of rail in this multimodal puzzle?
Well, first of all, I think projects like we handle, it's CapEx projects. And often these cargoes are designed to fit into containers. There are a few spectacular items which needs to be have special attention, but most of the cargo is containerizable. So in that respect, already a lot goes on rail, especially in Russia again, because of the distances there to travel. So that's one part. 80% goes into containers, and then let's say the other, the exceptional pieces or steel structures, etc. It fits also on the rail track. Depending a little bit, I'm talking again about CIS on the limitations of bridges and tunnels. And there is a diagram where you can measure the height and the width, which you have to engineer or take care of. So there is a lot of challenges, there is a lot of planning involved. Also special lashing securing, but it works.
Are there more challenges when it comes to rail compared to inland shipping?
There are more restrictions anyway. Because of you have to pass through tunnels or over bridges, there is a different type of challenges.
And then why would you, for example, there's a customer and there are two possibilities to transport something from A to B. There's rail and there's inland shipping. What do you recommend the customer then?
Well, it depends a little bit on the season. When the river is frozen, it's not really an option, so that's one thing. Price, of course. Where do you land with your inland shipping? Inland waterways, sorry. Maybe you have to build jetties, that's already a costly affair. And then the last mile by truck. It depends a little bit on the destination and where you want to go.
Yeah. And would you recommend having a longer distance by one mode or having more pieces of the puzzle together?
We like a challenge,
yeah.
but actually we prefer to have a long distance on one commodity.
Because I can only imagine, I mean, I know it's good to have all these modalities linked together, you're making a puzzle out of pieces, but with heavy cargo, with heavy stuff that can barely be moved, how is that when you have to transship it from one mode to another and again and again and again? Isn't that a huge challenge?
Yeah, but often you don't have a choice.
No.
You have to do this, and it's always a risk, or there is always a lot of planning involved. So, but that's our job.
Yeah, and do you have a good cooperation then with the terminals and the transshipment facilities that are...
That's a necessity.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of efforts in that.
Do you see a lot of investments coming from these parties in order to facilitate the market?
Could be better, but always.
All right, and which terms can
for
it be
example,
better?
I can give you an example. We ship quite a lot of mining equipment out of China into CIS. And with COVID, border crossings, for example, have been a main challenge. We're blocked often for weeks. Also, the gauges of the carriages needs to change, so you need to transship at the border, which causes huge congestion. So there is, but there also the borders in the two countries, they cooperate and are willing to invest to facilitate this. I think on the Silk Road, there has been a lot of investments to improve this service. Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel facilitated enough by parties like terminals and border crossings?
Everybody works in a cooperative way, and it is based about relationship. You need to invest in each other's relationships, and everybody in general is positive. But of course, authorities and rules and regulations, like mentioned by COVID, made a stop on certain things that you also saw it on the road. I think in the middle of last year, lots of truckers avoided to cross borders full stop, just by simply avoiding the risk that they had to stand still and they could not travel further. So you saw a large change in flows of trucks and trains and everything, cargo.
And what are the, for you as a rail operator, what are the biggest challenges when you face in a journey?
The biggest challenge is if you do these kinds of things, is the authority, rules and regulations. The railway is a very, very regulated industry. because you have formerly in Europe all kinds of state railways, of course. And let's be honest, the railways were born out of the Industrial Revolution, but they were partly moved for military purposes. So it was also trying to keep each other off the network. And that is a big challenge in Europe, to get the harmonized process going.
Yeah, and is that, how is that in terms of Project Cargo?
Project Cargo is subject to the same regulations. It's doable, but it's just, you need to know the rules and regulations, and then you can manage and maneuver around them.
Yeah. Is there a lot of attention for this particular industry?
A lot of
attention within the rail freight industry for Project Cargo?
It's not a big thing in rail. I think there's much more on water. It's not a big thing on rail, but there's good opportunities for specialties. Smaller, heavy products can easily be done on rail.
Yeah. And what do you think? What do you see among your customers? Is there a lot of appetite for rail?
Appetite maybe, but also for us there is a growing appetite from our side. We decide and we make the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So from our side we're very interested, especially in these remote areas. If you have to travel, thousands of kilometers, it makes sense to put it on rail.
Yeah.
It depends a little bit on every occasion. I repeat myself maybe, but
yeah, but I can imagine that there's a lot more inland water here in Europe than, for example, in Kazakhstan.
Correct.
Yeah. So those are the regions that you would cover by train then.
Exactly.
All right. In the meantime, are there any questions from the audience, Adnan?
The chat is being silent again, but I think we can go further with our guests.
Yes.
With the questions that we have prepared.
Okay.
So we just mentioned on certain bottlenecks, so to say, within the segment. But what would you say within the multimodal approach? Rail has a significant part to play. So what are the advantages of delivering cargo by rail? Or is it possible, I should rephrase myself, is it possible to deliver cargo by rail completely from one part of the Europe to another part of the Europe?
Depending on where you want to go, it sounds easy. I think in general you can reach the far corners of Europe by rail. You can do that. Of course, if you have to change the track width, like for example to Finland or Spain, which is currently still the case, then you need to do either a transshipment or you need to have equipment where you can change the axles from, so you can fit on the track width. The gauge itself is difficult because of the tunnels and all kinds of stations and platforms, but in general you can reach everything, and of course if it has to be done, then you can do always a transshipment. But you need to take the cargo in your hands or in the crane hands, and that is of course a possibility of damaging the goods, so let's try to avoid that. So in fairly reasonable, we can go from Thessaloniki to
how big is
to Kiruna.
How big is the network, like DB Cargo
The network
operates on?
From where DB Cargo is part of is shown on the screen. It is covering the whole of Europe. You can reach every corner of Europe either directly in the DB Cargo network, which is now on the screen, or we work together with partners further north, like in Sweden, where you see no networks from us, or somewhere on the West Balkan, Belgrade, and in Serbia. So you can reach more or less every place in Europe, and if you go to the CIS borders from Poland or Hungary, then you can do a transshipment, and certain stretches you can even go with a normal wagon.
And if you would put like a frame on this map with the possibilities for Project Cargo, would it look roughly the same?
It looks roughly the same, yeah.
You can reach anywhere with Project
We can reach
Cargo.
more or less everywhere where we need to go.
Are there any specific procedures you need to undertake when you're shipping a large object compared to a container?
Well, you very often need an exceptional transport authorization, like you always do on road as well, because you are either too wide for standard procedures, you need to take specific trains. Sometimes you need to make sure that there's no train coming from the other direction, so you would not hit it. All these things are taking in place, but there's a fairly well-regulated rule book for that, so you know what to do and take care of it.
But that's interesting. You said there cannot be a train from the other direction.
Sometimes that's the case.
Isn't that hard to realize?
Well, Yeah, it needs to be organized.
Yeah.
It's just putting the traffic light on red and then there will no train from the other side.
But there's a long journey that another train cannot go in the other
Well,
direction.
it sometimes has to do with a specific bottleneck in the network. I can tell you a story about, for example, the bridges in Denmark where you go from Denmark to Sweden.
Mhm.
We can carry standard containers with fireworks and dynamite. But at the moment that cargo is in that tunnel, there's not allowed another train in the tunnel on the counterbalance. Otherwise, if it goes wrong, you might have fatalities.
Yeah, that's a matter of authorization.
Yeah, it's authorization and
Yeah.
it's simply track planning.
Is there something the industry should be doing, Jeroen, in order to facilitate that more, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think it's a safe way, it's a green way, but it takes a lot of planning and organization. I think sometimes we don't have this timing, so there we might be able to do something about that, and promote it more, I would say.
Like
Because
today.
it's not really a well-known solution yet, a widely known solution.
Yeah. Well, you are having a very broad audience right now, and
Okay.
if you can promote it, what would you say?
I think that's up to you, Maarten. I'm not a cargo or not a rail operator, but
Give us a call and we'll find you a solution. And we'd
Right,
also
is
let you
something
know if we
convincing?
don't find a solution, of course.
Yeah.
There are certain limits, but it's a question of, very often a matter of having a discussion, try to explore the possibilities and then take it from there.
Yeah. What would be a very typical moment where you see a limit? Where you already know this we cannot do.
The limit at rail is probably reached in the width of the cargo and the height of the cargo. That's where you come about 4 meters 50 height or 350 width. There's a limit to that.
Yeah. And is that very limiting then?
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
for project
Yeah,
cargo,
yeah.
I specific big items, but I understood from Maarten that the weight is quite is not really a problem.
No.
So that, I mean,
That can be
a lot of heavy cargo which needs to be cannot be transported over road, can be shifted to rail. Or even the limitations of waterways is also there. So I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of opportunities, especially for heavy cargo, which is not that big.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice conclusion.
Yeah, so that would be then the strength of rail compared to other modes would be in weight rather than in size.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you are here to also point out this multimodality of the whole puzzle. But how multimodal is the customer? Because you said it's up to us. You think of the solution, but can you just sell that to the customer, or are they afraid of that?
Well, it's not really rocket science. I mean, you get a list of suppliers for a certain project, and you know where they're located, and you need to find the optimal solution. And it's a little bit of a, let's call it a triangle between three choices. Either you go for the cost-effective way, or a time limited way, or even a sustainable way. So you have to find a balance between those three and present options to your clients.
Yeah.
Do you have the time to bring the cargo? You have 2 months to wait for your cargo, or we can also fly it, for example. But that's so we always think together with the client in partnership and as much as upfront as possible in budgeting stage where we look at alternatives. Also greener is coming now into the picture more and more.
Yeah, I was
At
just
least we
going to ask
measure
you.
it. Now
Yeah.
it's to convince the client to choose an alternative. That's another story. But it's on the agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about green a lot this morning, and we
Okay.
had the inland shipping guys sitting here, and they said, of course, the inland shipping mode is the greenest modality. Is that true? What do you think?
The chat wants to know also.
The
which
chat
one is
wants to
greenest.
know.
Yeah.
I would say that it's not about the choice between railway and waterways. I think it's a choice of taking trucks off the road. And I think both are complementary to each other.
Yeah. And you, what do you think, Maarten?
We discussed it before. I think that's correct what Jeroen is saying. I think it is, if you look at that, we are able to take full green electricity. That is, of course, an advantage we would have. But in this line of business where you do project cargo, it doesn't play such a critical role. It's more in the bulk standard containerized business or where you have more of the same. This is specific and you need to make the best possible way to get the cargo to the destination where it needs to be. And if it needs to be quick, as you can say, yeah, we take a plane. And then quick
Yeah.
offsets, unfortunately, then maybe environment. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Any more questions from the audience?
No, the audience just wanted to know Which one is greenest or the
greener.
cleanest?
Oei.
We
Yeah.
should have voted. Well, maybe the
Exactly.
audience can tell us what they think. What is the greenest modality? Maybe you can all write it in the chat. And we should have had a poll, but you can still let yourself be heard. Now, one last topic, digitalization. How far are we in real?
In rail, I don't know. I have no idea. Honestly speaking, I mean,
We are still on a path of development, but we do have some opportunities to follow and track and trace our shipments with GPS technology where we can follow up. There is more and more possibilities to handle shipment and give your orders in the system digital, but on this specific cargo you need to do all kinds of manual work. It's all about specialities today. So that is the difficulty, but the track and trace of the wagon is the easy part.
Yeah.
All our wagons are equipped with GPS appliances, so you can follow them all the time.
All right.
yeah, I can only confirm that. We can track and trace at any time where the cargo is, so that's an advantage, but you also have this with trucking and even on inland waterways,
Yeah.
or you can put your own tracking devices. I think there is still a long way to go in general in project cargo to automate or to digitalize. So I mean, we still deliver paperwork to the quay to when we want to ship. We still have a lot of stamps to be put, especially in the CIS. So there is still a long way to go, but it's a path which we all have to take, and it's a long way, but only
do
to
we
make
need?
it visible
Yeah.
already, it's already a first step. CO2 calculations, this is all digitized, and you can easily put variables so we can understand the situation better.
And what do we need in order to speed it up, the process?
I would say a better cooperation between every chain in a multimodal supply chain. There is still a lot of, how do you call that, méfiance, misunderstanding and mistrust between the parties even to share the information openly. And I think that's still a struggle.
Yeah. All right. You recently made a journey, or not you, but cargo that you were helping out from Finland to Antwerp, or from Antwerp to Finland?
From Antwerp to Finland,
Yes.
correct. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about this journey before we take a look?
It's not maybe not the most impressive shipment we did, but was quite challenging. So we shipped caterpillars, quite actually one of the biggest caterpillar machines, dismantled it in Antwerp, put it on a ro-ro vessel to Finland, and then put it on truck.
You dismantled it into
Well,
smaller...
it's delivered dismantled because
Okay.
it's too big to ship actually.
So that's another option. Instead of just putting it onto
but
you...
when we ship on rail, often these machines are
okay.
dismantled, or the tires get removed, or even the mirrors to fit within the dimensions.
Yeah.
So that's always a puzzle as well.
All right, let's have a look.